And another thing the comments revealed is just how undefined modern relationships have become. Because the more people replied, the more I realized we use the same words to mean completely different things. When I said dating, people imagined completely different scenarios, and some people imagined casually getting coffee. Others imagined emotional exclusivity. Others imagined years-long relationships heading toward marriage. Others imagined basically functioning as a married couple without the covenant. And honestly, no wonder relationships feel confusing. Because if two people enter a relationship using the same words with different definitions, they may not even realize they want different things until they're already emotionally invested. We've created all these categories now, like I mentioned: casual, serious, situationship, courting, dating with intention, dating without labels. And somewhere in the middle of all of that ambiguity, people are trying to figure out what actually counts as commitment. And honestly, I think many people are emotionally exhausted from trying to navigate relationships that never become clearly defined. Because, again, clarity requires vulnerability. Defining a relationship means risking rejection. It means expectations become real and it means that directions matter. And I think another major theme that emerged from the comments was fear of wasting time. That came up over and over again in different ways. One person brought up the idea of being equally yoked, and I completely understand that concern. Why does it keep doing doubles? And I think most people would agree that discernment is important. But that also raises another question. How long should discernment actually take? At what point does wisely getting to know someone become indefinite hesitation? At what point does discernment stop moving toward clarity? And I'm not pretending there's some magic timeline for relationships. I don't think that there is. But I do think that many modern relationships drift without direction for long periods of time because people are afraid to define what they actually want. And honestly, I think emotional investment complicates that even more, because once people become emotionally attached, clarity becomes harder. Now there's history, comfort, routine, fear of loss, fear of hurting someone, and fear of starting over. And suddenly people can spend years emotionally connected while still unsure where the relationship is actually going. And I think that tension leads directly into one of the biggest questions underneath this entire conversation. Have we normalized emotional commitment without covenantal clarity? I think that question sits underneath almost everything we've talked about so far, because modern culture seems incredibly comfortable with emotional intimacy while simultaneously being uncomfortable with permanence. We want connection, but we fear surrender. We want intimacy, but we hesitate at responsibility. We want certainty before commitment, even though commitment has always required some degree of faith. And I'm not saying people should rush blindly into marriage. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I do think modern culture has created a version of relationships where people can experience many of the emotional benefits of commitment without ever fully defining the relationship itself. And honestly, I don't fully know where all of this lands yet. That's part of why this series exists, because the more conversations I have, the more I realize how layered all of this really is. And maybe that's the biggest thing the comments revealed to me. People aren't just wrestling with dating, they're wrestling with trust. They're wrestling with trusting people. They're wrestling with trusting commitment. They're wrestling with trusting permanence. And maybe even trusting whether covenant still means what it used to mean.